Welcome back to Heroes and Villains HQ. Today is part one of my Star Wars tier list. We're going to rank all of the Star Wars movies from S tier to F tier. So before we jump in, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. But let's go ahead and rank the Star Wars movies. But before we jump into the video, I am going to be giving away the Star-Lord Marvel Legends figure at 500 subscribers. All you have to do to enter is subscribe to the channel, and when we hit 500 subscribers, I'll release a giveaway video for you to comment on, and I'll pick a winner from there. But back to the video. Okay, so in this first part, we're going to take a look at just the Star Wars movies that have been released, and we're going to go in release order. I'm going to rank them based off of what I believe to be the best and worst Star Wars movies. I'm going to give you, my quick opinion on why I love or hate each movie. So let's go ahead and jump in with the first one, the movie that started it all, Episode 4, A New Hope. To me, this movie is just so special because it's the first one. It's what created this amazing saga that so many people enjoy and love and celebrate. And I just think that this movie, it encapsulates the magic that is Star Wars. So for that reason, the fresh new characters, the new universe, and the simple yet amazing hero's journey story that is told, Episode 4, A New Hope for me is A tier. Next up, Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. This is widely regarded as the best Star Wars movie in the entire saga, and I have to say, I'm close to agreeing with everyone on that. For me, Empire Strikes Back is an S tier movie. This one is amazing. It's darker, it's grittier than A New Hope. I love all of the Imperial ranks we get to see. We get to see the Snow Troopers, obviously the Stormtroopers on Cloud City. We're introduced to Boba Fett in a larger way. Darth Vader takes on a more prominent role, and of course we get the I Am Your Father scene, which in 1980 must have been insane. But Episode 5 just, it dares to be bold. It has darker tones to it. I especially love the opening sequence on Hoth. I think that is one of the best battles in all of Star Wars. And of course, the scenes with Yoda and Luke on Dagobah are special and just expanding what the Force means. And I mean, it's a new thing to everybody who's watching Star Wars in 1980 with Empire Strikes Back. We get a little bits and pieces from Obi-Wan in Episode 4, but Episode 5 really begins to expand on the Force and its power. And I just think that this movie is really special. It's held up to the test of time and continues to be one of the best versions of Star Wars. Now, the conclusion to the original trilogy, Episode 6, I think this one is a little worse than the first two. And I say that it's worse than the first two, like the first two aren't amazing. Episode 6 is a fantastic movie. I think it's a perfect conclusion to the original trilogy, a perfect conclusion to the saga, and it has a lot of great sequences. Obviously, the final duel between Luke and Vader, and eventually Luke getting his father Anakin to come back to the light side and throw Palpatine over the edge into the Death Star. I mean, that scene that is Star Wars. It's Star Wars to me, at least. I also think the final battle for Death Star 2, just that space battle with Admiral Akbar and the A-Wings and all of the TIE interceptors, and that is just a visually amazing sequence, even for 1983. That is just, it really looks great. But at the same time, I just don't think Episode 6 has the same magic that Episodes 4 and 5 do. So I'm going to put it in the B tier right now. However, I think it is going to be just slightly in between A and B. So that's where I'm going to place it for right now, B tier. Okay, now we're going to head into the prequel trilogy with Episode 1, which I think is one of the most overhated projects in all of Star Wars. I think Episode 1 is amazing. Telling the story of meeting young Anakin, Darth Maul in that movie is great, and Qui-Gon Jinn is just, I think he's the best character in the movie. Obviously, we get Padme, Queen Amidala as well, and the introduction to Senator Palpatine and getting a glimpse at his rise to power. I don't know. I don't understand the hate for Episode 1, and I think, as it stands today, Episode 1 is not nearly as hated as it once was. Personally, I love Jar Jar. That's just me. I'm a prequel kid, so take that with a grain of salt. But Phantom Menace, I think, is a great project. It sets up the story extremely well, and I love it. But at the same time, it's not better than any of the original trilogy movies. And with that said, I am going to put it in the B tier, but behind Return of the Jedi. Attack of the Clones. Again, I think it's overhated. However, this is my least favorite of the prequel trilogy. I just don't love the dialogue with the whole love sequences between Anakin and Padme. I buy into the love between these two characters, but it's a little cringy at times. But I think that's also the fun of it. It is fun to watch the movie and cringe at some of these scenes and laugh. But at the same time, it's Anakin and Padme. It's young love. It is cringy. I do think visually some of the sequences in this movie are some of the best. Specifically, Kamino is amazing. Obi-Wan's story throughout this movie and him tracking down Jango, learning about the clone army, definitely hits the nail on the head with the plot of Palpatine slowly taking power. At the end of the day, that's what it's about here is Palpatine, being the puppet master in the background for these two sides. And seeing the beginning of the Clone War on Geonosis is awesome. And when I was a little kid, Episode 2 was my favorite Star Wars movie, simply because the Battle of Geonosis at the end of the movie, I loved the clone troopers, and I still do love the clone troopers. And that scene is what started that love. So I think Episode 2 has some really highlight moments, but some of the moments that are cringy or not as great definitely drag it down a little bit. With that said, I'm going to put it in the C tier. All right, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This movie is the best Star Wars movie, Star Wars project there is in the entire universe. This is S tier, and it's in front of Empire Strikes Back. I will go to bat for this movie time and time and time again. This movie is amazing, and I got to actually see it for the first time in theaters this year when it was re-released. Absolutely incredible experience. Specifically, that opening sequence over Coruscant. Can you open a movie better than that? I don't think you can. I think it's the best opening of any movie ever. And the duel on Mustafar is the best lightsaber battle in all of Star Wars. Nothing you can say or do this movie is the best. Nothing can change my mind about it. Love this to death. Everything about this movie is amazing. That's why I'm ranking it S tier, number 1. All right, the Clone Wars movie. Now, I said I was a prequel kid, but in actuality, I was a Clone Wars kid. Clone Wars was really my Star Wars that I grew up with, tuned in for every single episode almost on Cartoon Network. And I do remember the Clone Wars movie and absolutely loving it. But you look back on it and you especially compare it to the rest of the Clone Wars TV show, the Clone Wars movie definitely is not on the same level as the TV show is, but the TV show and Clone Wars had to start somewhere. I think the movie does a decent job in beginning that Clone Wars era story. However, I think this movie does fall flat in comparison to the first two trilogies. Like I said, it's a great introduction to the Clone Wars, but it's not better than episodes 1 through 6. So I'm going to put it in C tier, but behind Attack of the Clones. All right, now we're going to jump into Disney Star Wars and the sequel trilogy and the spin-off movies. I got to say, obviously, I grew up a Disney kid. I love Disney. And when they bought Star Wars, I just remember the excitement so much surrounding the upcoming sequel trilogy. And I'll never forget when the first trailer dropped for Force Awakens and watching that. And I was so excited. Going to see The Force Awakens in theater too was amazing. This was before, at least at Regal Cinema, which is what we saw it at, back home. They didn't have tickets for seats. You just bought your tickets and then you showed up and waited and had to go into the theater and grab your seats. And I remember waiting in line to get into the theater to go see this movie and the crawl coming up and the movie theater going nuts. It was just an incredible experience. And I loved The Force Awakens after, leaving the movie theater. Force Awakens I thought was amazing. Yes, is it sort of a rehash of the original trilogy. It is. It's got some nostalgic bits, but I always and still do stand by the fact that episode 7 felt like such a great introduction to a new trilogy. Yes, it had those nostalgic bits to bring back the old fans and keep them excited, but it introduced us to a lot of new and interesting characters. Poe Dameron was awesome. Finn always excited me because of the kind of hint at maybe, is he force sensitive? I don't know. And Rey in episode 7 I thought was great. And leaving the theater, it was always like, okay, well then where's Rey's getting her power? Is she Luke's daughter? Is she related to another Jedi? It just, episode 7 set up so many different strings of information that you could track down in the next 2 movies and really develop a world and develop these characters in an exciting way. And I always loved episode 7. So for me, I'm putting episode 7 in the B tier, and I believe it is behind episodes 6 and 1. I still think episodes 6 and 1 are better than The Force Awakens, but The Force Awakens, again, to me, always felt like a really good introduction to new characters and a new trilogy and a new time period, and I was really, really excited for where it was going to go next. All right, Rogue One. This project is something special. This movie is something special. I'm going to just start and rank it right away. I'm putting this in the A tier above A New Hope. Rogue One is so great, and now with Andor, this movie is just so much better as well, especially if you watch it all in one go. I'd argue that Andor Season 1, Season 2, and Rogue One is the best trilogy in all of Star Wars. Rogue One is just such an awesome movie. It's got great characters. Krennic is a standout. Jyn is a standout. Cassian is amazing, and we get so much more of him. Never would I have thought that Rogue One, telling a story about a group of characters who go on a mission and die, would turn into such an expansive portion of the universe, especially with now Andor. That time period is so fleshed out and so detailed and so raw and emotional. It's just so great. I love Rogue One. And this is, in my opinion, the best Star Wars project Disney has released, bar Andor, but we'll get into that during part 2. All right, the moment probably everybody in this video has been waiting for. Where do I rank episode 8, The Last Jedi? The Last Jedi, I think, was the most hyped I've ever been for any Star Wars project ever. Getting excited for that movie, the Force Friday before it came out, all of the new Lego sets and figures coming off of what I, again, felt was episode 7 was amazing. Rogue One was amazing. The community, I don't think, could have been at a higher point going into episode 8. Episode 8.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
But in all seriousness, episode 8 is just so bad. It is a slap in the face to Star Wars fans. It's a slap in the face to the universe. Rian Johnson, great director. We see that with his other projects. And visually, this movie is stunning. I mean, Crate alone, that planet was so beautiful in this movie. The plot of this movie sucks. It does. It introduces things into Star Wars it doesn't need to. It killed every single plot line Episode 7 created. And my hate for Episode 8 doesn't necessarily stem from the movie itself. Because the fact of the matter is that Star Wars is a massive universe. There's going to be projects I love, there's going to be projects I don't love, and they're going to be vice versa for another Star Wars fan. There's Star Wars fans that love things that I don't, and that's fine. I don't care about that. I don't think everybody needs to have the same opinion as I do. However, the problem I truly have with Episode 8 is the trilogy. Disney decided that they weren't going to have a plan. And we know that now. Obviously, we didn't know it back then when the movie came out. But we take a look back at the trilogy of movies, and Disney had no plan. No plan whatsoever for these movies. We've heard it from the actors and actresses. We've heard it from, screenwriters and everything, they just did not care. They didn't create a linear story. They didn't map out the trilogy. They just said, hey, JJ, go make 7. Ryan, here, go make 8. And then they were going to give episode 9 to a third director, but then they were like, no, everybody hates 8, so we're going to give it back to JJ. It just makes no sense. It makes no sense. And episode 8 brings episode 7 down, because anything episode 7 does that you get excited for gets destroyed in episode 8. And because I'm in the conversation, I'm going to skip over Solo and come back to it. Rise of Skywalker, I'm putting in the D tier. All Rise of Skywalker did was take everything episode 8 did and destroyed that. So what happens is that you start a new trilogy, and by the time the trilogy ends, you're at net zero. Like nothing happened. Nothing happened. All that happened was you killed mainline characters, you destroyed the New Republic, and this all happened in a matter of like 1 year. It makes no sense at all. The trilogy is just a mess. It's a mess, and I'm not even hating on these movies anymore because I hate creative decisions that they made with certain characters, right? Like at first when I hated these movies, I didn't like Rose. I didn't like what they did with Finn. I didn't like Rey because they just didn't do anything with their character. She went from, is she somebody? Well, now she's a nobody, and then she's a freaking Palpatine. Like, that all upset me back when these movies came out, let alone what they did with Luke. Not even going to touch on that. The problem with these movies is that they make no sense in the context of Star Wars or the universe. They did nothing but destroy what came before, and they didn't do anything to create something special that is new. Like I said, the trilogy is net zero. That's all it is. So, yeah, I hate them. I just hate them. So, yeah. Solo, which is the last movie on this list, I think is a fun movie. It's a fun movie, and it got hate because of episode 8. But I don't think it's a bad movie. I'm putting Solo in the C tier ahead of Attack of the Clones and the Clone Wars movie. Solo is a fun adventure movie. That's what it is. I loved Alden as Han Solo. I thought he did a great job. And this movie is super fun and rewatchable. You can go back and watch this movie time and time again. It's a heist. It's just a fun adventure. And that, at the end of the day, is what Han Solo is to me. And I love that movie. So that wraps up my Star Wars tier list part 1, just the movies. Stay tuned next week for part 2, where I'm going to put all of the TV shows into this tier list and rank them up against the movies. So hit the subscribe button down below to stay tuned for that video. But with that said, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Comment down below your Star Wars movie tier list. I'd love to hear what your favorite ones are and what your least favorite ones are. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.